Namaskaram,
Namaskaram.
Sadhguruji, and always a pleasure to have you on, frankly speaking. And it's always good to ask you questions. And when you respond
I don't know
to
how
them,
else to speak, huh? Only
absolutely.
frankly.
I think all our viewers like it when you speak frankly and take a look at the socio-economic, political issues in our country and the cultural renaissance that we are going through. But let me begin today with the biggest news of the day, or rather I should call it the biggest achievement of the day, of the year, of the century. India takes over the presidency of G-20 today.
Isn't it fantastic? Amrit Mahotsav.
Exactly. Sadhguruji, I want to ask you, is this just as some people would see it very cynically, a rotation that has come India's way, or do you think India is on the cusp of something big internationally at a global platform?
See, it is definitely a rotation, but if you play a ball, which is rotation, when the ball comes to you, how you hit it is yours. So it's come to us is significant, that's not it, that's not the whole thing. How we are going to make use of this to make India's position among the Committee of Nations a significant place. I think we've already started on a very good footing that way. But there's a lot more that can be done because you are in the committee of 20 top nations. Well, every nation will play ball according to their own national interest, that is always there. But there is a global perspective which you can change the narrative on the planet. Because human societies don't simply change like that. First you have to change the thought process, then the narrative in the society changes, then action flows slowly in that direction and actual transformation happens over a period of time. So we have an immense and a tremendous opportunity to do that right now. I think that is the intent and we are going towards it, and I should tell you this, that one of the event or maybe few of the events, G20 events will happen in Isha Yoga Center in Coimbatore, because we are very actively involved in environmental issues and a few other aspects, education and stuff like that, because we're essentially an education institution.
But Sadhguruji, there are many who will come around and tell you, India was great even before 2014. And anybody who thinks that India has gotten closer to greatness after 2014 is actually afflicted by a disease called Modi Bhakti. How do you respond?
See, we are only 75 years old. In the life of a nation, 75 years is not too much time, actually. But at the same time, we have been a thousands of year old culture. Because of our cultural strength, 75 is a little too much. In about 30 to 40 years, we should have become a developed nation. But we've made some mistakes in this, which are… some can be corrected, some are hard to correct. This is not to blame anybody in particular. These are mistakes as a nation, as a people we have made. For example, there was a time when everybody in the world wanted to go to one place. Bharat, Hindustan is the place to go. So everybody wanted to come here, whether it's Columbus or Vasco da Gama or whoever else, everybody wanted to come here, not everybody succeeded because it was the wealthiest nation. So what happened? Well, conquest happened, we allowed things to be ruled by somebody else, things went bad for us, it's all right. Now, though we are only as a republic 75 years, we have a cultural and economic history which we have not forgotten. So revival should have happened very quickly, but one significant blockage we created was, we cut off both the trade routes, both on east and west. We cannot go to West Asia, we cannot go to Europe, we cannot go to Central Asia, we cannot go to Eastern Asia in whichever way, everything we got it blocked up. So the only way you can export anything from this country is through maritime thing, but maritime, if you really look at it, our ports are really coming of age only now in the last 5–6 years' time. Before that, our ports are just namesake ports, they're not really much, okay? They're not really much compared to international ports. So now we are coming to that, but I think India hit a sweet spot not necessarily by intent, but technology and other things fell into place, that our businesses started exporting products through the cloud, through the space, because of the information technology. If that one thing had not happened, your economic revival would not have happened, because everything has to come from the sea, everything has to go through the sea. We don't have any land routes, as if we're an island somewhere. So, these mistakes have been made. Now to correcting that, the necessary diplomatic efforts are going on, economy is beginning to buzz in a big way, and the number of young people who are becoming entrepreneurs is massive. Whether you call it startup or this or that, it doesn't matter. Essentially, our entrepreneurship instincts are once again being brushed up. In my father's understanding, you must get a central government employment. State government, it's no good. Anytime something will happen there, you must get a central government employment always. So, from there we have come to a place where parents are encouraging their boys and girls to become entrepreneurs, all kinds of enterprise, cultural enterprises, various things. It's absolutely fantastic to see that shift happening, that parents are pushing their children to become sports persons. This was unthinkable. Very easily I could have excelled in many sports, but it was simply not possible that you…
Amenities or even the direction was not given to generations.
No, I didn't need a direction from anybody, but
options, as an option
option
availability
also was not there, mindset also was not there. So I'm saying tremendous things are happening. This should have happened little earlier, but this is how nation thing is, and above all, as I said, we are a kaleidoscope. We are a very, a wonderful chaos, all right? We are not like an arrow who goes like this. We are like a swarm of bees. If you have noticed a swarm of bees, they all seem to be going in different directions, but on the whole, they go where they want to go. I'm really encouraged about what's happening in the country right now, but it needs to happen at a bigger scale, because right now we have this demographic dividend. So we're going on saying we are young people, we are young country, young nation, all this is great. But if you wait for too long, we'll all become old, all right? If you wait for another 15, 20 years, people will become old, then what will you do? So there is a saying that even if you're on the right track, if you don't move quickly enough, you will get run over, especially if you're on the right track.
Correct.
If you're on an abandoned
because
rail…
there's a lot of traffic on that track.
If you're on an abandoned track, you can sit and sleep there. You're on the right track, now you must move at a certain pace, because in many ways we are behind so many developed nations, not only Western nations, even Asian nations. We are behind them in terms of living quality, because ultimately that's all that matters. How the citizens are living, that we have not really achieved very high levels. It's beginning to happen, things have changed, but not enough to touch 1.3 billion people. It's a massive challenge, it's not a simple thing. In a country which is this many colors, this many languages, this many religions, this many castes and creeds, in this country, to take them in one direction and achieve it very quickly is a difficult thing, but we need to do this, because if you sit on it for too long, it's not going to work.
Sadhguruji, I also want to ask you, when there is somebody who comes in as an international jury member and comes and says that films like Kashmir Files, the tragedy of India, that many people even today carry in their hearts after 32 years, it really is all about vulgar propaganda. How do you respond? Is this an agenda, or is this a deliberate move to bring down a moving forward India, and then it finds some amount of fringe resonance within our country?
See, I would say, giving benefit of doubt to a foreign delegate, I would say it's ignorance. But local people supporting that agenda instead of educating him is definitely an unfortunate reality. So, in 21st century, well, this happened in 20th century, late 20th century, almost 21st century time. If such a thing can happen and we can even put it under the carpet, It's the biggest tragedy, not for Kashmiris, it's for humanity. Yesterday, I happened to be in a large family of Kashmiri Pandits, and they wanted to meet me, and I spent some time with them. Highly educated people, well placed today in various parts of the world, but their hopes and their hopelessness is very, very painful, profoundly painful to me. This has happened in our country repeatedly over the last 700, 800 years or little more than that. But we've always been thinking that if you put it under the carpet, everything will get cured. Now, the most important thing about our lives, whether it's our personal lives or the life of the nation or the world for that matter, if there are ugly things, all of us should face it as it was and see how to transcend that. Not try to live in that always. At the same time, not try to be in a denial and say, it never happened, it never happened. Terrible things have happened in the last 800 years in this country. Terrible means very terrible things. Unfortunately, not enough books have been written about it, not enough movies definitely not been made about it, not enough knowledge or awareness about it has happened. The rest of the world doesn't even know about our famines, our wars, our massacres, our genocides are something unknown in the rest of the world. This is not good. People should know. Not because even today we want to nurture the same grudge and pain and resentment, no. It's very important that we grow out of those things, because the idea is, do you want to invest in the injustice that happened to your fathers or your grandfathers or your forefathers, or do you want to look at creating justice for future generations of life? That is the most important thing in everybody's life, wherever we are, whichever part of the world. Because our concern, for the past we have some pain, but this pain should not translate into resentment and ruin the future of the future generations, whoever they are. So, for this to come to some kind of resolution or resolve, it's important people acknowledge that this has happened, and whoever, if they are still alive, people who perpetrated, they say, we're sorry. Sorry is not going to bring back lives, but at least there is some resolution that, okay…
Closure.
There is some kind of closure to that. If you don't do that, these wounds will unnecessarily persist, and it'll not damage any one community's life, it'll damage everybody's life, because resentment, large-scale resentment in a society is a poison that will spread and destroy our future. We should never allow it. Right now, India is becoming a vibrant nation, buzzing with economic activity, cultural activity and variety of other things. This is not a time to put poison of resentment and anger in our minds, but that will become more and more if you're in denial. It's very important we accept it, acknowledge it.
But do you think anybody who has been the perpetrator will ever apologize? Because something like this, we see it's being justified at one end of the spectrum, it is being deplored at the other end of the spectrum, and 32 years later, there is no justice that has been delivered, and there is no recognition, forget any apology.
Unfortunately, that could be partially true, not entirely true, I would say, but largely true. Can we overnight fix it? I don't think so. But changing the narrative, educating the people, moving the younger generation in that direction, it doesn't matter what my fathers did, what my, ancestors did. Now this is how we want to live. That statement that should come, okay? That statement needs to come, that the younger generation say, we are not a part of this. We want to move ahead as a nation, we want to make our lives better. That's what is they're interested, that's what every human being is interested. But at the same time, what may be a minuscule percentage within any community, unfortunately they are dominating the narrative, and more unfortunately, the rest of the communities in any given community, both in religious communities, caste-ridden communities, the rest of the community who are not a part of such things are not speaking up. That is a big problem. So that not speaking up may be simply because they are still… many of them are just afraid to say what they want to say, because generally close-knit communities, they have a way of punishing them, not necessarily with death or something, there are so many ways that their lives will be tightened up. So, it's very important, whether it's a caste or a religion or a creed, they must spread out and live wherever it is possible for them economically or otherwise. People should not pile up in one place. This is important. This is very important for the well-being of any community which piles up. So that piling up should go, people should live according to their economic capabilities, according to their educational qualifications, wherever society puts them, they must go and live among people. Variety of people should live together. People living in one cloistered place, naturally it gives a kind of ecosystem for somebody who's virulent to poison that whole atmosphere and make them believe something else. So this is a thing that every nation understands. In our country, we've gone through this for a long period of time, these things have been happening. So because of that, this cocooning of people is very strong. I think the educated people who don't belong to such mindset and thought process should speak. It is very important they speak. Well, somebody will give you a death threat, somebody says we'll do this, we'll do that, this is always there and it may also be executed sometimes. But as a nation, as people, in what kind of atmosphere do we want to live? Do we want to always live in fear, thinking something will happen to us, or do we want to create a society where people can speak up and it's fine?
Sadhguruji, you spoke about the concentration of people in certain clusters. From that, I pick up a few social and cultural things that are happening in our society, which, as you said, cannot be brushed under the carpet and need to be looked at. They may be ugly, but we need to look at them so that we find a redressal, if not for us, for our future generations. So let me ask you questions. There are divisions within our society. Whether you look at divisions in the form of South versus North, the language that is being spoken, it is a division.
Right now I believe I'm south of Himalayas, am I correct?
Yeah, yeah,
So
very much south of Himalayas. Yeah, it is always relative. So south of Himalayas, but there is a Hindi imposition which people have a problem with. And I don't know if it's really imposition, it is, freedom of expression of one person to say, okay, my language is the best, you can say your language is the best and everybody should get together.
No, I would say that is not a good way to go, because when we became a republic, we divided this nation as states on linguistic basis. The moment you divide the states on linguistic basis, what it means is, all languages will find equal platform. But definitely some languages have more population, other languages have lesser population. But you never told us at that time that because you have less population, one day we will kill your language. There was no such statement. So now suddenly if you talk about this is the national language, there is no national language in the country because we have been divided on linguistic basis. Our state is of a certain language. And there should be no attempt to reduce the significance of that language in any way. Here and there, maybe in policy nothing has happened in that direction, but here and there somebody makes a statement and somebody else will use this as a political tool to make things happen for themselves. So this should stop. Everybody must clearly understand this nation has been divided as states on linguistic basis. That means all languages. Maybe how many Malayalis are there, how many Kannada people are there, how many Tamil people are there, how many Telugu people are there, in 2 states they are there, how many Hindi speaking are there, how many Punjabis and Bengalis are there, populations may be big difference. Maybe Hindi population, probably, I don't know the exact numbers, could be out of this 130 crores, maybe it's 25-30 crores or more, I'm not sure, it should be around that, I'm thinking. Well, Tamil people are only 6 to 7 crores because many of them are successful, they're all over the world. They're right from indented labor during the British time to now, maximum number of people go out of the country from southern India. Now, of course, Punjab and others have sent a lot of people out, but they go if South Indians go out because of their qualifications, everywhere in the world they're sought after.
Well, we are going to have a linguistic stroke cultural battle right here.
Why?
Between Tamilians and Punjabis now. You're saying because of education, Tamilians went?
No, I want you to say, because you are close to Delhi, there are many advantages you've had in the first 50 years which we did not have.
We had disadvantages too. All the plunderers came through this route and plundered
I'm saying in the last
north
50
of India.
years. I said in the last 50 years.
Okay.
In the last 500 years, you have had many disadvantages, you've been ravaged. Those ravages did not reach the tips of southern India, so we've been safe. Still our temples are in beautiful condition because one thing is we built it with rock, and even if they came, they could not dismantle our temples because they were built like that, and also they did not reach there, most of them. So we have had an advantage historically, but since independent India, I feel in the first 50 years, northern India, particularly this region around Delhi, had a huge advantage in terms of infrastructure, investment, everything. It is only in the last, let's say, 35 to 40 years, South is getting a certain amount of attention, both in infrastructure and investment. So naturally, southern people, they got educated and most people went out to find jobs elsewhere. So that is there, but that's not the point. About the language, we must clearly articulate this, every one of us, right from the administration down, the central administration to everybody must clearly say this. We divided the nation on linguistic basis, that was a promise. That was a promise, one language will be not put above the other. So, the moment you said, this is national language, like for this, I must tell you, at that time when the Hindi thing was going on, I don't know who said this, I don't remember who said this, but somebody in the south said, so if just by population, if you're going to decide this, how many peacocks do you have to make it the national bird? How many crows do you have? Let's make the crows our national bird. So don't go like this, it'll get ugly. It's very important. Linguistic state means it was a promise for every language, your language will be valued. Now, if you talk a little bit of different language, people will use that as a leverage for political advantage.
Well said, and some of these issues must be looked at purely not on a population level, not on the number of votes that you're going to get, but basically on the identity of people, and people should not be forced to compromise with their identities that are so important to them. Having said that, I want to ask you, there is the question of identity. Religion automatically comes in and it becomes a major discourse in the public space. In religion, and this is a matter which is even being looked at by the Supreme Court, do you think forced conversions are an issue, a socio-cultural issue that is taking place in this country, and do you think we need to address that, we need to look that in the eye and maybe have laws to deal with it?
See, this is a complex issue, it's not just about a group of people converting somebody else. That is definitely happening, no question. It's happening at an alarming rate. Why I say alarming is, see, if the demographic of any nation changes significantly in one generation, very easily it will lead towards a civil war kind of situation. Out of control, it can go. So it's very important that for any reason, either for religion or language or caste or creed, demographics should not change in the social fabric too rapidly. If it happens over 1,000 years, nobody can do anything about it. In one generation, if there is a serious shift of demography, this will lead to trouble, serious trouble for a nation. Right now, we are buzzing to be a developed nation, we want to move in that direction, but at this time, if you change the demographic too rapidly, I think rightly Supreme Court has said, it will threaten national security. It's a national security issue. I don't think most people saw it that way. I've always been saying this, don't change the demographic too quickly. I'm not for this religion or that religion. Do not change the demographic in any sense too quickly. Any change in demography like that will definitely lead to warlike or civil war-like situations. It's always happened everywhere. This is the mechanics of the world, this is how societies work. So, having said that, there are discriminations in a given society, there are economic disparities, dollars are coming from somewhere else, and people are giving free everything. See, people can even get elected with a lot of free stuff, so people can change religion for a lot of free stuff. So, this kind of allurements and things are happening. I am not so concerned about which religion somebody is. My concern is India, my concern is Bharat, because Bharat beats in my heart. And when any misbeat happens, if it meets a bit, I know it's missing a bit, beat. Missing a beat is not good for the nation, and if you change the demographic too rapidly, if… I was also talking about the other one, the language. Imposing a language means you're trying to change the demographic in some way. Imposing a religion means you're trying to change the demographic in some way. Quick change of demographic is a disaster, recipe for disaster for any nation.
But then what happens to the age-old definition of secularism?
See, secularism means all of us can exist. There are many nations around us where only one religion can exist, others cannot exist. Secularism means all of us can exist. This does not mean we have to make everybody into one religion or two religions or whatever that is. That is not secularism. Secularism means all of us have a right to exist in this land. See, this is a nation where if there are 5 people at your home, these 5 people are worshipping 5 different gods and we never had any problem. The problem is coming because it's being done with a certain agenda. Agenda-based religion is always a problem, and especially the speed at which is happening is alarming, definitely.
So you admit it is alarming, and the radicalization, is that an issue too?
See, without some sense of radicalization, you cannot do conversion in a big way. If I believe in something, whatever I believe in, if I don't make what you believe in wrong and what I believe as supreme, how to get you? Without radicalization, there cannot be conversion. Radicalization need not necessarily mean somebody is going to pick up a gun. That may also happen. But radicalization is essentially, I am absolutely right, you are on the wrong path. You are going to hell, I am going to heaven, so I want to take you to heaven out of my compassion.
When something like Shraddha's murder takes place in our society, you know, a woman of today living in with her partner, and then she's estranged from her family because she took a decision. There are societal reasons why there is a stigma attached even today. Families probably in the older mindset do not accept this, and that's what possibly cuts off women and girls like Shraddha, and then the end that she meets. Do you think this is a societal issue? Do you think this is a religious issue, as in some cases it's called love jihad? Or do you think this is just an isolated crime incident?
It's unbelievable that, people can cut up human beings and put it in a fridge and live there happily, eat there and make a living and everything is fine. Well, this is not acceptable in any given… So if you make this normal, then it's very, very dangerous. So about society and about, girls getting estranged, see, let's not read it like that. Why parents are concerned about marrying or going out with somebody that they have no any kind of radar about is their fear. Because this fear is not just in India, it is there everywhere. Because this has happened right through history. If a woman was not properly married, marriage means this two big families get married. Why you want 3,000 people in your wedding is not because without them you cannot marry. It's a marriage of so many people. These two people, in case something goes wrong, they can't harm each other. Essentially, when I say physical harm, generally, not always, generally most of the time it comes from male to female, all right? So that doesn't happen. Whole families get married, everybody is engaged, so it's not… your relationship is not just with the woman or the man, everybody is involved. This is a safety net. Don't think this is tradition. This is a very wise way to conduct these things, because people have forgotten that. They think everything can be done by myself. It's not like that, because we need to understand human beings, unfortunately, they are still not conscious enough to make life out of their consciousness or their intelligence or their love. No, still it is need-based. When your needs are not fulfilled, where you will go you don't know, all right? This is why safety nets were created always, so that there is a safety net. So you get angry with your wife, but you know your father-in-law so well, naturally you have to go and speak to him. You can't do anything with her without talking to him. You know her brother so well that you can't… he's your friend, you can't do something. Actually, a whole lot of people have closer relationships with the other family than their own spouse many times. So that gives a net. When that net is not there, definitely there is a problem. But this problem is more kind of enhanced in India, because still the family net is not there, means a social net needs to come. That social net is still not formed. We have removed the family net, but we don't have a social net like that yet, as it is largely constructed in the Western societies. But one must know these kind of things are happening there on a daily basis there also, every day. In Western societies, these things are happening. Women floating down the rivers, women bodies being found in this, forest and that forest is a regular thing. You just look it up, American crime scene, every day it is there, all right? So it is there also, though there is a very strong social net in those countries, in spite of that it happens. But here there is no strong social net, there is no such strong law enforcement. If you call the police, the way they're equipped, in the very nature of how we have and the number of policemen we have for the population that we have, it's simply impossible for them to simply come there. In America, the average time, in the remotest part of America also it is counted, the average time for a police car to come, a fully armed police car to come is 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay, that's average. In cities, they arrive within seconds, less than a minute, they are there. With that kind of policing, still it happens there. Here there is no such policing, there is no social net. If you remove the family net, then you're completely on your own. So you're vulnerable. You must understand the reason why all this is being talked about. I mean, I know I'll become very unpopular by saying this. People must know, wherever we are doing work, in the entire organization, the foundation that across the world we have created, 70% of the leadership positions are held by women. Not because of their gender, because of their competence. I don't care what gender they are. My thing is, can you do it or not? So, in terms of capability, they are holding 70% of the leadership positions. So, this is not about talking against women or their competence or whatever, but it's a fact that they could be easily harmed if there is no net around them. Either a family net or a social net or a law enforcement net must be effective. If nothing is there, these sort of things will happen in more proportion than other societies. It's not that it's not happening elsewhere, it is happening there also, but it's kind of alarming to see the proportion seems to be increasing.
And we need to address this issue.
We must address this. I feel there is no one magic wand solution for this, because we are a society in transition. Just 50 years ago, almost every woman was married before she was 18, 20 years of age. Men were married before they were 21, 22. Now that age has moved at least by 5 years minimum. For many urban women, it's moved much more. On an average, 5 years at least it's moved, which is a very good thing. It is giving the time and space for a woman to educate herself, mature, and simply not get pregnant and, reproduce children without knowing what she's doing. A little bit of maturity, there is time, it's good. But at the same time, it is a fact that human beings are made like this, that somewhere between 16 to 25 is when their hormonal upsurge is at their highest. We are not… it's not that I'm saying something must change. At least we must be willing to address it as parents, as elders, as this thing. Okay, what's the solution? They were getting married at 18 and somehow it was getting solved. Now there is no plan to get married. How are they supposed to handle this? No, that should not happen, that's wrong. It's not going to work. This is how it'll happen. In clandestinely, people will do. When people do something clandestinely, then they become vulnerable, especially girls.
And the risks are high.
Yes. When she does something in a clandestine manner, fearing either for the parents or for the society, then she becomes super vulnerable, that anybody can do whatever and there is no safety net. So we are a society in transition. It is not about looking one particular case which is horrendous, unfortunately. It's disgusting listening to all the details of what happened there. But we have to look at ourselves. We are moving from one level of organization of a society to another level of organization. It is not for us to decide which was better, which is worse. Inevitably, we have to move there because women have to get educated, they can't be married at 16, that's out of question. So what is the solution? At least we must be willing to debate, at least talk about it, address it at least within the families. If we don't do anything and think everything will be okay, unfortunately we will have to see these things.
I want to ask you this. You worked hard, not just on societal issue, but even on the preservation of the environment. Save Soil has been an important initiative by you, and it has a lot to do with India's soft power in the world. How has it been received? And on 5th of December, when the National Day really happens…
World Soil Day.
World Soil Day really happens, what is it that you think you have achieved through this entire, the entire event that you've done over the 1 year?
See, it is not a question of personal achievement at all. If you add enough organic content to sand, sand will become soil. If you take away all the organic content from the soil, soil will become sand. So right now the problem is of desertification. I must tell you this is shocking for me. 6 days ago, our own land, if you come to our center, you will see it's lush agricultural lands. So this is a new piece of land that we have where we want to do some regenerative farming, so I said, have the soil tested. I was very confident it will be above the national average. National average is said to be 0.68%. Below 1% is considered desertification by the UNCCD, but we are well below that. When I had this soil checked, it was 0.48%. If this is what is happening in black cotton soil, which is rich, rest of the country, 0.68 I don't believe anymore. I propagated this around the world, saying India's average is 0.68, which is desertification. Right now it's below 0.5. In the last 25 years, we have lost 10% of Earth's land to desertification. 10% in 25 years has become a desert. If you need to understand what I'm saying, just fly from Delhi to Chennai. Just every 5 minutes look out and see, except for Western Ghats and Northeast, it looks like a brown desert. In summer if you do this, it looks like complete brown desert. Why this has happened is all this has happened in a matter of 35 to 40 years. To put it into simple perspective for everybody to understand, see, there is something called as microorganic life. These microorganisms which number in zillions and trillions of species, a handful of soil has anywhere between 8 to 10 billion organisms, 50 to 75 species in one handful. This soil, these microorganisms which is the foundational life for all life on this planet, these microorganisms evolved over a period of time, they became worms, they became insects, they became birds, they became animals, trees, and here we are. Even today, over 60% of your body are microorganisms, only 40% is your genetic material. So if the microbial life collapses, it's not just about agriculture. Life on the planet will begin to collapse in a certain way. It's not like tomorrow suddenly it'll happen. Suffering will begin. We become vulnerable to all kinds of things, which has already started in my opinion. Right now, according to various studies, it says 27,000 species of organisms are going extinct per year. This slide is going like this. It is estimated approximately in another 25 to 40 years' time, this slide will go into a tumble. When it goes into a tumble, there is nothing you can do, there's nothing I can do. If we arrest this slide now and push it back, there is future for the world, otherwise immense suffering.
But why is this happening? Deforestation,
No.
industrialization,
No.
climatic changes, environment?
It's just this. When you said deforestation, in the world, 90% of the deforestation has been done because of our agricultural needs, not industry. Industry occupies 4.2% of the world's land. Agriculture occupies about 56% full-on agriculture, another 21–22% part-time agriculture, so totally 76% of the land is occupied by agricultural lands. Some of them are bushlands, semi-agriculture, but this is the thing. Now in the last 35 to 40 years, we are not putting any organic content back into the soil. Why we are not putting it is, we found this magic powder called fertilizer. You put this powder and everything, boom, it just comes up. So we got very excited about that and forgot to feed the microorganisms. They can only eat organic material. And organic material, there are only two sources on the planet, and in the known universe there are only two sources, plant life and animal life. You just see the lands, where is plant life, where is animal life? Both animals and plants have gone out of agricultural lands. So there is no organic substance for them, so they are starving to death. Another thing is, in summers, this was common practice. I've lived on farms. It was a common practice this 30–40 years ago. Summers means we all put cover crops. Just see one cover crop anywhere there, nothing. Now fortunately, across the world we've pressured the governments to give subsidies for cover crops. Now we are working with the central government to do the same across the country. I think it will happen very soon. Before the summer it will come through. United States has allocated about $8.5 billion for cover crops now after the Safe Soil movement. Germany has allocated about 4.5 billion. India has allocated about 2.4 billion for the river revitalization, which is part of the soil process. So it's beginning to happen. Above all, 81 nations are in the process of making soil policy now in the last 8 months. I want you to understand this, I'm sure you followed these things. In the month of January in Glasgow, when they met, the whole world met to address climate issues and stuff. I spoke to many environmental ministers in various parts of the world, every one of them asking me the same question, but Sadhguru, why we never uttered the word soil in COP26? I said, you must answer, it's not for me to get into political aspect of it. But COP27 just now in Egypt, like this Conscious Planet and Save Soil movement has a observer status there, our teams were there, and now it's become a significant thing. Even China has started a soil survey, which they had not done for last 40 years. So this is mainly because of this, that we did not put back enough organic content into the soil and keep the organisms alive. When you plow the soil, which is going to 12 to 14 inches with the tractor plowing today, most of the life, 84% of the life is within 15 to 18 inches of the topsoil. You're plowing 14 inches deep and leaving it open to the sun. It's like I peeled off my skin and I'm standing in the sun. Is it pleasure? Land is screaming, but nobody can hear. People are asking me, Sadhguru, how did you know this? Are you a soil scientist? Are you an ecologist? I said, I have crawled on this planet for over 6.5 decades. I'm like a worm. What happens, happens to me. It is also happening to you, But you are busy with something else, you are a PhD, what can I do? It is just this, that we are not understanding soil is the largest living system, not just on this planet, in the known universe, it is the largest living system. But now 85% of the nations on the planet still treat soil as an inert substance. You know, in this country we call, in South we say Thaimanno, I don't know what you say in Hindi, we say mother soil,
Dharti Ma.
Yes. So, we have always referred it to our mother because it's not just an emotional word. We understand this is the source of our existence. Even today, farmers, before they get into the land, they will bow down, then only step on it. In most places, it's still alive. So, but most governments on the planet are treating it as an inert substance that they can fix by adding a chemical or taking off a chemical. Too much lab and no life, this is the main problem. Fortunately, it's turning around. As I said, 81 nations are beginning to form, policies in the direction. Everybody is moving there. As I said earlier, I am no more concerned about whether we will move in that direction or not, we will. Pace, speed is the problem.
So you've created awareness, you've undertaken this whole, it's almost been an agenda that you've been driving with your lifeblood. Do you think awareness part you've met with success, the pace part will keep pace with your expectations?
With awareness, in 100 days, we reached 3.91 billion people. You think it's a success or a failure? Everybody thinks it's super success. I think it's a little bit of a failure because there are 8 billion people. That's my way of looking at life. Over 3 million children wrote letters to their prime ministers and presidents. In India alone, over 1 million children, 1.5 million children wrote letters to our Prime Minister. When I displayed the whole thing to the Prime Minister, about 15 lakh letters displayed in Vigyan Bhavan, he looked at this and said, "This is Jan Andolan hai." He said, I said, yes, it is a people's movement, not just in India, around the world. German education ministry gave out an official this thing that all schools must participate in Save Soil movement. And now it has become the agenda of most environmental agencies in the world, they understand it is so. For some reason it was hidden, I don't want to get into the politics of that. There are other issues of fossil fuels and everything, but even for climate change and global warming, which lot of people don't understand soil is important, is tomorrow if you have the time, just go out where land is plowed, just touch it with your hand, you don't need any meter or anything. When sun is up, touch it and see. Where there is grass, touch it and see. Under the tree, touch it and see. The temperature difference will be anywhere between 8 to 12 degrees. Is this not global warming, I'm asking?
And you put it so succinctly. Yes, but still, it's the question of a half glass full or half glass empty. Well, we've started moving in that direction with the hard work that you've put in. We just hope the pace picks up. There are miles to go.
No, somebody like you shouldn't hope. See, in a democratic nation, we must…
No, we have to make it a Jan Andolan. Beyond where it is.
Yes.
It can't be just children.
It can't be just…
It has to be each one of us.
Adults also have come through, but what I am saying is, see, this is the problem of a democratic nation. That is, a government has a mandate for maximum 5 years. Suppose you are the head of the state, either this country or any country, you have 4 years or 5 years mandate. Of course, every country has a resource limitations. Tell me, will you focus on doing things which will bear fruit within those 4 or 5 years, or will you take up something which will take 10, 15, 20 years to fulfill? Naturally, you will take up short term. Unless people reassure you, if you take up long-term issues, we are with you. This is what we need to do, that we must make it very clear in every nation for political leadership, if you take steps for the future well-being of this nation, if you take steps to assuring the well-being of our children's future, we are with you. When I say children's future, we must understand this, doesn't matter how much money you have, how much education you have, how much wealth you have. Every responsible scientist is clearly saying by 2045 we will be producing 40% less food. I want you to just imagine this situation. In Delhi, in NCR, 40% of the people have not eaten for 3 days. Do you think you will go to your studio or I will go and do my
We will have
thing?
civil wars on the streets.
Already UNFAO is saying that, the World Food Program is saying by 2035 there will be dozens of civil wars because of water and food stress. 3.5 billion people will be water stressed by 2032.
That's half the world, almost half
Yes,
the world.
and it's not too far away, it's just 8–10 years we're talking about. And water stress and food stress are not different. See, we have clearly manifested with hundreds and thousands of farmers, we have manifested this, that by increasing the organic content, the irrigation requirement for the land could be almost gotten rid of, except for a few crops. With minor irrigation, you can manage any crop at a higher yield and keeping the soil alive. Now in dead soil, you're trying to grow food, it needs lot of water, lot of fertilizer, the input cost is so high. All our farmers, 132,000 farmers who are into this kind of farming, of raising organic content in that thing, their incomes have gone up 300 to 800%. One day you must come and meet our farmers, because just talking to me is no use, you must see them, how their lives are transformed.
Well, it has to be a campaign, not just at government levels, not just at your level, but it has to be a campaign for each and every one of us, because unless we save soil, saving the planet will be an uphill task.
Yeah, you need to catch this. Show it to the
And that
the Save
saves
Soil
soil.
ball, it's a football season, so we would want you to kick it, but you may kick it too hard, so you can just throw it.
Well, absolutely, saving the soil to save our planets, and the time is right now.
Right now,
As always, a pleasure
thank you.
speaking with you, Sadhguruji, and as always, we come out more enlightened with the margdarshan that you show. And we hope our viewers will understand the importance of our existence and the role of soil in that.
To say it in Hindi, Thai Mannu. What? Ma Dharti.
माँ धरती माँ
धरती माँ।
धरती माँ को बचाना है तो बिल्कुल देश की मिट्टी को बचाना होगा।